Welcome to this walkthrough of our Node.js Boilerplate demo. I'm going to be demonstrating the setup from unpacking the zip right the way through to recording the first authentication and database write. So we're going to copy the contents of the zip into an empty project folder. Now we'll go ahead and open the README. In this walkthrough, we're only going to be looking at section 1 of the README, the setup guide. There is other documentation in the README that you can refer to. And the support email is listed here as well. We'll start by running npm install. This will unpack the dependencies and libraries from the package.json. We'll also initialize version control with Git in the project folder. We'll come back and manage the Git ignore later on. And we'll populate the .env as we go along. This is an important configuration file. We'll store the secrets and keys used by the server in the .env. So we'll start with Firebase setup. We'll log in and create a new project in the Firebase console. I'm going to disable Gemini and analytics for this project. Let's refer back to the README whilst we wait. So we're creating a new project. We're going to click Add App and a web app, and then we're going to get the Firebase config object, which is very important. It contains the values of the keys here in the .env. So just going through those steps again, add app, web, we'll name the app. Now we're going to get the Firebase config object. So this contains most of the keys we need for Firebase. There are a few more that we'll get along the way. So for a production environment, you would populate the .env with these keys. I'm going to be demonstrating using a local host. So I'm going to place these keys directly into the firebase.js file. But for your production setup with a normal hosting environment, you won't need to do this. We'll also be populating these in firebase_admin.js. Again, you would usually be able to leave this. These keys are read from the .env. But because I'm demonstrating on localhost, I'll populate these as we go along. So we're going into real-time database setup now. We're going to build the real-time database and create a new database. Select your region. You can start in test mode. And we're going to copy this rules object and paste this into the database rules. This is used later on for email verification. We can copy the Firebase database URL. And we'll also need this in the Firebase admin config. So we're just missing the private key and the client's email now. We'll build authentication for our app, and we're going to enable email and password. This is now set up. There are two more things we need to do whilst we're in authentication. The first is in settings, we need to add our domain as an authorized domain. We also need to go into templates and set the action URL. This action URL is it's important later on for password reset functions and email verification, which is already set up to work on this on the server. So paste your action URL in here. And we can also paste these fields into the .env. The final part of Firebase setup is for the service account. It enables admin actions such as admin database rights and admin authentication on the server. So we go to project settings, service accounts, and we're going to generate a new private key. This will download a .json file. So we'll get that from the downloads. We want to copy this file into the project directory. I'm also going to copy the file name now. This is so that we can add it to the git ignore. So we've moved the .json into the project folder. We'll add the file name to the git ignore now. This is to keep the JSON safe, keep it private to our own system. We'll see it's grayed out there. Now we can open the .json and we can get the values of client email and private key and paste these into the .env. So like I said, you can leave firebase.js and firebase_admin.js as they are. For your production environment, you'll just need to copy these keys into the .env, which I'll do in a moment. So these Firebase keys would go here in the .env. We're going to populate that with the remaining values. One thing to mention, if you can't find your Firebase config object after setup, it can always be found here in project settings. And there's the config object with all your keys. So Firebase console setup is complete. This is how your .env file should look. So these should be the raw keys without quotation marks and commas. And the Firebase config files that I've been updating will take from this env file straight away. I also deleted Firebase measurement ID. This is used for analytics, I believe. And I've populated the email secret and password secret with my keys. So we're going to move on to Upstash setup now. We'll log in at upstash.com. This is going to enable us to create a database for Redis. Redis helps with security. It's used in session management. We'll use the free tier for now. So we've created our database. Now we just need to get these two API keys listed here. And we can take those straight away. Just copy those in. So that's the Upstash setup complete. Firebase setup is already complete, as I mentioned. The last piece of the puzzle is Stripe setup. So we're going to need to collect the publishable and secret keys from Stripe to begin with. I've got an empty Stripe account here, completely empty account. We can copy the API keys from this box on the right straight away. So you should use test keys to begin with and copy them into the test block in the .env. Your test keys will start with _test. Now for the webhook secret, we need to open the developers tray. We'll just expand this. And we need to add a webhook destination. So leave these settings as they are and click select all. We're just going to click continue through these options. And now we need to populate the endpoint URL. So we can build the endpoint URL using the server URL and the pathway to the webhook endpoint on the server. So we'll open the server file here. And we're going to use /API/webhook, which is the endpoint on the server for webhooks. So this is the endpoint URL. Just replace this with your domain and put it into both fields. We can go ahead and add these destinations now. We can copy the webhook secret straight away from here. So we'll just copy that into the .env. So we've added a webhook destination, pasted our endpoint URL, and we've got the webhook secrets. I already mentioned I've populated the email secret and password secret for Node Mailer. And one more thing to mention in this setup is robots.txt and sitemap.xml. You just need to replace the domain placeholder in these files. These files are used for search engine performance, and they're already set up to work with the boilerplate. Once you've finished testing Stripe, you should use the live keys in that section of the .env. So I think we're ready to test with localhost now. I'll run npm run start, and we'll check that everything is working as it should be on the local host. Okay, the local host is loaded. Test a couple of features. Just to prove that this really is the demo, I'll just change this title text here in index.ejs. And reload. Okay, so our boilerplate looks like it's working well. We've got an empty database that we've created in Firebase. And if I sign up as developer, we should see that we can record our first user data. I'll go ahead and check the email consent checker as well. And this logs us into the dashboard in the boilerplate, and we can see now in the database we've got our first user data and our first entry on the mailing list from the email consent. There's also a record in authentication. So there we go. You can go ahead and test the Stripe setup. This is the full boilerplate setup from start to finish in just under 15 minutes. I hope this was helpful. Please feel free to reach out if you need support. Thank you very much.